everybody. Welcome to another episode of Prevent Cancer podcast. Hi, Sushant. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hi. So, Sushant, today our topic of discussion is going to be around how cancer cells develop inside the body. How do they expand? Because what we have seen that usually what happens is that there is a certain primary location where cancer cells they develop, right? Because of the reasons that we mentioned in our last episode, right? So, for all the listeners who haven't checked our last episode, please go through the description. The series of episodes are already there live on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and even on our YouTube channel. So, Sushant, let us begin the discussion that how do cancer cells develop inside the body? How do they actually expand throughout various organs that we have recently seen in a lot of cases?
Okay. So we are talking about the spread of tumor cell from the primary side to the secondary side, right?
Yes.
And I'll just give a brief trailer of what we discussed during last calls, right? So we discussed about the difference between a healthy cell and a cancer cell, right? And cancer cell arise just because one the core reason is mitochondrial dysfunction. It causes you know it damages the respiration. It is respiration insufficiency uh, combined with compulsory fermentation, right? So essentially, so mitochondria is the control switch for cancer cells. It control the apoptotic behavior of cancer cells, right? And again, when this switch is gone, when mitochondrial is dysfunctional, right, the cancer cells start growing, right? And again, instead of since there's no oxygen, so ATP is not produced because the oxidative phosphorylation is the most efficient process to produce energy, right? And when there is a damage to respiration, which uses oxygen, obviously, to produce energy and the byproducts are carbon dioxide and the water vapors, right? So essentially, in case of mitochondrial insufficiency, ATP gets converted into mitochondria instead of producing ATP produces ROS. ROS is carcinogenic and mutagenic. It damages your lipids, proteins, DNA, RNA, and you have all these are downstream effect of mitochondrial dysfunction. Again, the cancer cells start growing. They ferment glucose and glutamine, right, for their growth, but they grow uh, at a particular place in the primary site, whether it is mouth or lungs or colon or breast or whatever it is, right? So essentially, they grow there. So what is the form pumps and polyps, lumps and polyps, right? And they grow slowly, right? So again, there are a lot of misconception about the spread of cancer here, right? And again, what we call it metastatic uh, uh, cancer cells. And again, we still say that, it is a genetic disease, so we blame genes. Again, I'm going to share a few things which is very, very, shocking for a lot of people, but that's the truth, that's the science behind it. So essentially, most of the genetic mutation which the current healthcare system and oncologists and everyone thinks and the DNA testing company thinks that these are random genetic mutations. So, the process of metastasis or the metastatic cancer, right? The systematic metastasis is there are different steps. There is a local invasion of what we call is the tumor cells, cancer cells. There's an intravasion which enters the blood circulation. Then there's the immune system suppression and survival, right? Immune system suppression, and then extraversion where it enters the other organs, tissues, and distant organs, and there's the secondary tumor formation. These all are the steps of metastatic systematic metastasis, right? So again, it's too much to ask for a random genetic mutation to do all these things. So there's a lot of misconception around it, right? And again, so what happens is these lumps and polyps and even the benign tumor or maybe malignant tumor, benign tumors or malignant tumors, yeah, they are slowly growing, spreading, which are so again for the people benign is a slow growth of cells which is not cancerous. Malignant is obviously the cancerous cells, right? So essentially they start growing, and again what happens is we have a very sensory system inside our body, right? So they are growing, and then the immune cells, especially macrophages, right? So macrophages are natural metastatic in nature. Macrophages are very strong sort of cells. They even can live in hypoxic environment, the low oxygen environment, and they sense and they enter they are free to move everywhere, right? Unlike so all these the cancer cells, the cells which are become cancers have a limited ability to move to different parts of the body, right? So they start growing at one particular position, and again these macrophages senses it, if there's a normal process, if there's an injury, there's a wound, there's a bacteria, there's an inflammation, right? These macrophage immune cells go to the site and do the repair work, right? That's a normal process, right? So again, and these are genetically programmed. So essentially, they can't sense it as a tumor cell or it's a bacteria. So they just know that okay, I have to kill this thing, or I have to repair this stuff, right? So again, when they go to the to the site of cancer cells, they start throwing cytokines growth factor, which further stimulates the cancerous nature, the proliferation of the cancer cells, and again, they become they are fusogenic, so they start fusing with the cancer cells, right? So the immune cells, macrophages, which were using respiration for their energy, have immediately converted from a respiration to a fermentation mode, right? The cytoplasm of where the mitochondria of the macrophages dilutes to the cytoplasm of the tumor cells, and again these macrophages become rogue, they become metastatic cells, right? And again, since they start spreading, they can go anywhere on the site of the injury, so they start spreading, and that's how the cancer spreads. That's how, from a local invasion, which is again the primary tumor site, these macrophages enter the bloodstream, right? It leads to the immune system suppression, because we discussed this thing that or probably I have not discussed, because we did a small bit of video, that how lactic acid, when the cancer cells consume or ferment glucose and glutamine, lactic acid produces, which actually makes your immune, which is anti-cancer, which suppresses the anti-cancer immune, which is immune suppressive, right? So again, there's the immune suppression, there's an extraversion where it goes to other distant tissue and organs, and again it then become forms a secondary tumor, right? And again, so this is very very important thing here, right? That you know this is how it spreads across the body, but they spread on a very non-random locations, right? So so probably, if I may ask you, do you know which parts of the body organs bear the most wear and tear, or needs the more repair things, right? So probably, if you know, right? So they
So in
are,
terms of wear and tear, I would say maybe liver is one of
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
Liver,
So
intestines, and
liver,
then
lungs,
there's
liver, lungs, bones, right?
lungs,
Bones, right?
bones.
So these rogue immune macrophages, which has become metastatic cancer cells, would go to non-random locations such as liver, such as lungs, and that's why you may find people who even have oral cancer may have a secondary tumor in liver, or probably who have colon cancer,
Lungs also, lungs
like like
also. In
like
case of breast cancer, I've read it goes to the lungs as well. In a
Yeah, so
lot of
these are
cases
these
in
are
the
non-random locations, because
so.
wherever there is a site of injury or inflammation, the macrophages go and does the repair work, and that's again
Hmm.
these rogue cells would go and start forming tumor in different, and that's how it spreads to different parts of the body, and the 90% of the cancer death is attributed to metastasis, right? So again,
Hmm.
that is
Hmm.
that is
Hmm.
that is what we call is growth, and again, so this is something. First of all, your genes mutation is too much to ask for a genes mutation to do all these 4 5 steps for a tumorous cells to become metastatic cancer cell, right? So again, and that is very uh, difficult to understand, to appreciate, to accept this fact, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that I agree. That I totally agree with what you've said.
Mhm.
So now, since we are already talking about the word metastasis here, right? So could you elaborate this term for? I mean, a lot of cancer patients might be knowing this already, but for the general audience out there, so you could just elaborate the word metastasis here. What is the metastasis stage?
In simple words, in layman language, it is actually linked to how your cancer cell spreads its wings to different parts of the body, right?
Okay.
So there are different steps. As I mentioned, there's a local invasion, right? Local invasion means the actual primary tumor site where the tumor cells is growing, right? Then there is an intravision which enters the bloodstream, right? Then there's an immune system suppression. Then there is an extravision where it enters the different tissues and organs, and then there's a secondary tumor formation, right? Another point important I want to mention here is that about stem cells, right? Especially embryonic stem cells, right? Sakshi, I just want to ask, do you have heard of any companies who are doing who are telling these circulatory stem cells are actually metastatic cells? Have you heard of this
Yes, I
thing?
think there are I have heard of two or three companies in the world are doing this, and somebody even in Asia is doing that. I'm not sure the name,
Hmm.
so I think yes, they are doing it.
So again, I'll just tell you a few things. That says the genes expression profile of tumor cells are similar to those cells which are performing the functions of macrophages, right? So the macrophages, again, it's an established scientific evidence behind it. So macrophages are actually, uh, what do you call, is a natural metastatic nature of cancer cells, right? So essentially, coming to stem cells. So what are stem cells? Stem cells are basically, those cells they can get it to replace your dead cells with the new cells. They do wear and tear and right. So essentially they travel through this, and that's they do the repair work, right? So again, stem cells and tumor cells have the similar properties because they focus on anaerobic respiration. They focus on fermentation, right? For the to meet the energy needs, right? And that's why a lot of embryonic stem cells, which are undifferentiated stem cells, which are floating inside the body, probably because they ferment glucose and glutamine, both extract energy for fermentation. So a lot of companies misinterpret stem cells as in tumor cells, right? But it may or may not be true. So essentially, uh, the only thing is that stem cells can go to different places, and again stem cells do not have that capacity to actually spread, right? So it's actually macrophages, rogue macrophages, which have the metastatic nature, which cause systemic metastasis, right? Stem cell doesn't cause it, right? So the only common thing is that their biochemical phenotype is similar because they both extract energy through fermentation, right? So again, this is a wrong understanding about you know assuming that they are stem cells. If there's certain DNA damage has done, probably that is causing the systemic metastasis, which is wrong, right? So it is again the focus has to be on the damage of oxidative phosphorylation or the respiration insufficiency which causes tumor cells to grow, and again macrophages comes into act, the go to the injury site and heal the wound and probably start spreading it. So another thing which I wanted to mention here, that the site of injuries, because if you even have a benign tumor, right? So essentially, if you are doing liquid biopsy to check the genetic mutation, right? And again, when you do that the needle biopsy, right? So the needle biopsy when you do, so essentially there is a wound and macrophages go, even if it's a benign tumor, macrophages go and start doing the things, right? And again, it converts into a rog. Converts from a benign tumor to a malignant tumor, right? So essentially, just by the fact that we are we blame genes, right? And again, we look at, so probably we may, healthcare system or doctors may look at, let us study the genes mutation of that particular tumor site. And again, when they do needle biopsy, there is obviously an injury, right? So essentially, another thing is tooth extract. Tooth extract, if there is certain, stem cell, tumor cells, if there, primary tumor cells, probably uh, tooth extract it could attract the macrophages to go, and then again it spreads the wings, and it leads to a rogue macrophage, and it spreads to different parts of the body. So again,
Mhm.
most of the preferred sites for macrophages to go, obviously liver, lungs, and uh, you know and obviously the bones, right? So yeah, there are certain cases we have seen, in brain also, sometimes very rare cases. So probably people who have oral cancer have seen there are certain, only 3%, 4% of the cases which oral cancer may spread its wings to
Brain.
brain cancer, yeah,
So
glioblastoma,
it could
right?
be oral or esophagus, cancer of the esophagus, right?
That
Because these are near, I mean, because
so
strategically these are near to the brain, right?
so you have to understand, that macrophages causes macrophages can become metastatic cancer cells, and again, they go to the locations where there's most of the wear and tear, like liver, lungs, right, and bones. So essentially, that's where, uh, I have seen in our father's case also, right? So colon cancer he had colon cancer, and it spread to liver, right? So essentially, it is a clear sign here, right? So just blaming your stems, assuming you have embryonic stem cells, which you assume as causing metastatic cancer, is wrong, right? Because just because they share the same way of extracting energy via fermentation, right? That's only the common thing, right? And if you there is the research where it shows that a lot of these the genes expression profile of tumors are similar to genes expression profile of the macrophages, right? So again, what we call is, seed and soil hypothesis. Again, your metabolic disease, which clearly mentioned that, wherever it there's the seed is the origination of the cancer. It can be breast, it can be colon, it can be lungs, it can be uh, oral, it can be brain, right? And again, soil are there non-random locations, right? Like lungs, liver, and bones, and so again, your genetic profile doesn't explain this, right? So again, if you think your cancer is an outcome of genetic mutation, it will not explain it. That why it is not going to the random, why it is not causing random, you know, random locations, the secondary tumor formation at random locations, right? It is non-random. It is very specific, right? So I'll share that research paper also, right? Which clearly explains this, right? In the description box, so that people can, and it's very easy to understand. It's not that difficult to understand, right? So in simple words, right, that is how the macrophages has a role to play in spreading the cancer between secondary sites. Yeah.
I think that was really some shocking things that you have unveiled here, because most of the people have been considering the same somatic mutation theory as the in terms of research. More people, they think that it's about the genetic factors only, the genes
Mm,
that are triggering this thing. And because these are the molecular signals that the body is giving, right, on a molecular and cellular level, these are
mm,
both type of the signals that the body is giving. And I think at this stage we should be doing more research on the molecular pathways for every sort of cancer, and even cellular level pathways, because I think that will help us get to a certain conclusion, not only
mm.
about the origin but also about the kind of cancer therapeutics that can be developed using the
Yeah,
molecular data,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So so thank you, Sushant, for an amazing discussion here. And for all our listeners, thank you for listening to our podcast. So thank you. We will be back with another episode again.
Thank you.